Damn, Gabby, you give me the best juice to go right into what I was going to talk about today. 2 days, especially when I was coming up, if you would have looked at me, it was always like, oh yeah, he's a nice guy. Like, all right, that's cool. Like, there was nothing more to it than like having all this knowledge and being a closer. I was never a closer. It took me years to get to that point. Success is easy. If I call an expired and I've done my due diligence and I get through that sales wall and I do that politely, trash. It's over. I love it. Don't you guys notice her calmness today? You guys feel that energy? It's like, hey, I got a listing. I got a listing. I made my calls this morning. Like I'm on pace. I'm on schedule, right? That feeling, that humble, like it almost humbles you in a way to be like, damn, like this is actually happening. Once you get to the point, then you have to start accepting it. But that comes later. Of all the things that we talk about, because what you got is this rapport, but his tone changes when you start to press him on other things on a more deeper level, right? Okay. So really to Danny's point, I think that there is definitely a lack of motivation, but it's what does that even mean, really? Lack of motivation, you're seriously, you have a lot of motivation, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is the reason and also what he's got on the back end. So I would go and I would figure out a way. Now, another way that you can get information out of people that I found to be pretty effective is that, and you do a pretty good job at this, and it's like, do you ever notice, Justine, that like you have a conversation with some people and you're like on for the day, like you are feeling it, your energy's high, like any objection that can come your way, you can pretty much handle. So when you feel in that moment, right, that's when really my inflection and be like, hey, just out of curiosity, and the way you say it, it could also be the way you're asking the question. Just out of curiosity, I handle so many relo clients that relocate. I work with a lot of corporate companies. We're actually certified relocation. So I'm really just curious. Like, did they give you like a package yet? Are they like explaining things to you? What's going on there? But by the way, at some point, now haven't heard all these different conversations, right? There might be something I'm missing. You know this client. My point of the way I would answer this question is, it really depends on the situation, but also I'm willing to take a risk and lose that guy if he's not going to willing to answer my questions. The one that we did last year for the Apogee guy, we signed like a single showing document, I believe, right? Like any buyers that came to the open house, and we had make sure that on his for sale by owner, he wrote open house in his description and open house like on like the calendar thing that they have. But then in turn, we would take his flyer, because again, I'm using his marketing. Not going to do anything else that what he's doing. You are trying to sell it on your own without representation. If you want to go to court and be my guest, but I'm going to take what you give me and then I'm going to send that out to buyers, and then I'm going to have signs everywhere. Because here's the reality, James. His marketing, his flyer is not going to look as good as obviously what we do. At the same time, what is going to bring in traffic in a new year, new market? It's going to be the signs. So what you do is you're getting branding, number one, and then number two, on top of that, you're getting all these buyers that you potentially, even if it's like 2 or 3, and then you got 2, 3 buyers sitting at someone else's property that is not even hired you yet. It's either he has the ability to buy something in a price range that makes sense, or he doesn't. So there's not much thinking beyond this. Damn, Gabby, you give me the best juice to go right into what I was going to talk about today. We're thinking too much in this moment for him. He needs to do the homework on his own, because we are not them. We do not know what we like. You know what I mean? Or they like, really. We are there to say, look, I want to look, and let's say, as an example, if Juan finally picks an area, which is why I was very clear, do you know where you're planning on going? He said yes, and I'll be honest, Gabby, that's the only reason I went on that appointment with you. Doesn't really like have a brain that doesn't connect or something. I don't know. You want to find something, right? Same thing with 206 Adams. I said, look, do you believe you can find something in the next 4 to 6 months? Like find something and close in something? They said yes. I said, great. Then we should do the coming soon right now and then just get this on, and then we'll either work with you on the buy side or keep me posted, and I'll refer you to the right agent in any marketplace in the country. This is what I would do. The last thing I would do with Juan, because there is a very big price tag and commission check, of course, on the sales side with him. I would then do my homework with him, spend the time. Juan, do you have a couple minutes for me? Okay, cool. Let me just ask you. I know we had looked at Sussex County. We're talking about PA. So you have all these different areas. What is the biggest benefit? Remind me again. So I would anchor, what is the reason he wants to sell? Even though you already know it, okay, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
That call, re-anchor it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then from there, say, gotcha. Well, based on what you're telling me, it sounds like PA, and then you can make suggestions. So that's where I would make suggestions to him and say, well, it probably doesn't make sense because PA doesn't have X school or whatever. But we have to
Mm-hmm.
figure out like if it's just like I don't want to deal with tenants anymore. So then why not just stay in the area and get a single family? And so what I would suggest you do is do the homework on one call with him and really boil down like an actual buyer consult and have that conversation with him.
Okay.
And then if at any point you see a tone change or something that you feel like, maybe it'd be beneficial to get your wife involved in this conversation, when can I meet again? And maybe you got to do a two-step on this, and you got to sit down and do an actual buyer consultation. This is too much thinking of on your end to be like, well, I wonder what he's thinking. What if we're ever in that position? I want you guys to know you're losing. If ever with a prospect, you're trying to figure out not that how do I follow up with this person? That's a different thing. I'm talking about when they've already basically said I'm going to work with you, right? And you're
Mm-hmm.
but they're like in this like weird land of not making a decision. You have to find out exactly what that is. And then if he does voice it, he's like, "Well, I want to go here. I want to pay this much." And then if and he's like, and then I don't care how long it takes me to find it or whenever the market gets there. Well, let me ask you a question and let me circle back to the Elizabeth Street. Is this something that you can see yourself finding in 4 to 6 months? And then I would go the
Mm-hmm.
coming soon route with that property. Because the worst thing we can do is that if he's not being realistic on the buy side, then you list it because you would sell that within a week. So if you list that thing, no matter what, it's going to cause havoc with his family, with his tenants, with everything else that we
Mm-hmm.
gotta hone in. The selling right now for you with him is not about Elizabeth ever. It's all on the buy side. So do the due diligence with him and take the time, have a half hour to an hour of a lot of time, even on a phone call. Do a Zoom with him and his wife then if you want to not meet in person, whatever. But it's gonna boil down to the buyer consult right now with logic. Let me be very clear. What I'm doing with you guys every single day on these meetings, to giving you logic and clarity and getting your emotional state in check so you can go about your day, is the same thing you have to develop within yourselves for your prospects and your clients.
Mm-hmm.
If you're all over the place and you're trying to figure out like, well, they want to go here, they want to go here, they're taking me everywhere. No, no, no. You have to be the reins. You are the one that is providing that logic and clarity for them. And if it doesn't make sense, you have. And I'm not saying you wouldn't do this because you do a very good job of confronting people in a polite way. So you got to just make sure you do that. Consistency and volume make up for almost anything and everything. So a saying that I heard, I don't know where this came from, but it sounded cool to me. And so I was going to say it to you guys, put the numbers forever in your favor because and if you don't believe that consistency and volume is going to solve everything, then you probably have a belief issue. Because if it's going to be something where you are not convinced that, oh my God, all this work I'm doing is going to get me a result, and you don't have that belief for whatever reason, then that's a core belief issue, in my opinion. Because I'm a perfect example. I'm telling you, dude, I'm nothing special. Okay, I have a lot of experience now, but especially when I was coming up, if you would have looked at me, I mean, no one looks at you. It was always like, oh yeah, he's a nice guy. Like, all right, that's cool. Like, that's about it. Like, there was nothing more to it than like having all this knowledge and being a closer. I was never a closer. It took me years to get to that point. That point there is, but what I've made up for is all of this practice and all the people that I lost business on, hundreds of thousands of dollars, like no joke that it was mine for the taking. Looking back at it now, 5, 6 years ago, but I didn't know what I was doing. But I just kept on plowing through. I lost. I lost. I lost. Can you guys imagine? On September of 2018, I took 8 listings that month. I was on this emotional roller coaster high. I was probably 31 years old at that. Yeah, 32, whatever. It was the best month of listing I ever had. And guess what happened the following month? 7 canceled on me. So you better believe I learned a lot, but that was an emotional gut punch. But guess what? What do you think? I mean, I was really bummed out about that. It got in my head, but you know what? I knew it was like, wow, I have no money coming in now for sure. And I got to keep on prospecting. It was probably the best thing that could have happened to me. And guess what? Over time, no one knew who I was coming up in 2013, 14, 15, even 16. No matter how many buyer deals I did, it doesn't matter. It wasn't until I got through all these hard lessons in my own career that I realized consistency and volume is everything. It's not even like a question. Like, I don't care how skillful you are, like, right? Like Gabby starting off hot off the press as an example. Sorry to call you out, Gabby, but I'm going to say it. You're doing fantastic. But the consistency and volume of what she does will make her a superstar in short time. However, we'll see how consistent she's going to be over the course of not just like a month, but over the year, and that's what's going to do it. This is something else too. This is not a point, but it's just some success is easy. It's literally 3 questions. It's what do I want? Where am I at? And what is one thing that you can do to move that needle forward today, right? Because as long as you have, this is the key with all what I just said. A lot of maybe speakers, you might heard it that way before, but they say it and then they don't give you how do you piece that together for analytical, let's say. As long as you have enough days to get there, it will happen. It's 15 years officially I'm in the business this year. 2025. Once I finish this year, it'll be officially 15 years. I'm a little over 14 now going into it, right? That's 15 years. And as far as I could say, didn't know Teddy 7 years ago. 7 years ago. That means no one knew who the hell I was. I was a blip in the radar for the first 7 years of my career. 7 years.
Damn.
Because I'm not that good. I wasn't as good as I thought, but I was really distracted and I had bad coaching. There was a lot of different things that I wish I had, but that's why I'm giving it to you now. Because to me, the biggest thing is, do you guys know the analogy I like to give between what's the difference between a hero and a villain? Superman, Batman, the Joker, all these different
the origin story, isn't it?
Why is there villains in these comic books? Okay, they both had horrible shit happen to them, the hero and the villain. But what makes them a hero and what makes them a villain is how they respond. A villain says, "You abused me. You got this. You had this. Blah 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 blah. All this other crap." And they say, "Everyone should feel my pain in the world, so I'm going to be a villain." Versus the hero says, I was abused, I had this, I had all these different things, but I'm going to make sure this never happens to anyone ever again. That's the difference. You have to have enough days to get there. I gave myself a long ass runway. So if you're thinking you want to make $1 million by tomorrow, I'm not saying it's unrealistic. Of course, you can sell a $20 million property anytime and then do that. But like, guys, this isn't like a new thing, like a new crypto coin a meme coin that we're trying to trade here. This is real estate activities, okay? So if we're being totally honest, as long as you give yourself the long-term mindset, listen to Gary Vaynerchuk stuff. He talks about this. You guys are all looking at the short-term mindset. Like I would not be here. I would not be making the money that I have. There would be no way. At best, from the schooling that I had, if I didn't develop myself into the salesperson I wanted to become, dude, I seriously, probably at the most, I would be making $50,000 a year. Write this down. This should be framed on every salesperson's wall. PLAN. So I'm in the fortunate position, and you guys all are who are on the team. You guys have Teddy to basically say, here's the paperwork. You realize, Gabby, if you were at any other company, you would have, or any other team that didn't have your own person you can go to that you could trust with what you would give this listing to. Here, you know what I mean? And it took John Ehret literally a year to unwind that habit of being like, I have to do this on my own. He input his shit in the MLS. He did all this other stuff. Prospect, lead follow-up, appointments, and negotiate. Now you can get over time, like I do right now, have leverage in the prospecting game. I got George, right? I have all this marketing now that we're testing out and doing. So, I mean, there you go. So you're drafting 4 offers. If 80%, the goal, the target is, because sometimes it happens with me, but I'm just kind of like scrolling through. I need like a break I just want to go on YouTube business stuff. And I want to hear just some good messages. And that's usually that's my break time. But like for you guys, 80% of your schedule, notice the schedule that I have set for you guys in the beginning of the year, whoever I did this for, right? Is that it's majority of the time, it's all in those sales activities. This is every single day. You should be prospecting, lead following up, going on appointments, and negotiating a deal. Now, Gabby, Teddy's going to write this up for you, send it out, do all the back end, but the money's in negotiating. But how much time does it really take to negotiate a deal? Back and forth a couple times. It's just like going whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like That doesn't take that much time, but it does take good focus if you have the right scripts. By the way, you guys realize I have scripts and dialogues for negotiating an offer. Like, it's not just like, oh, here's the offer. What do you want to do? We talk a lot about scripts and dialogues on the front end, how to get the business, but do you know how to actually negotiate the offer? What is your first thing that you say? Well, Danny's shaking his head. I'll let you guys know. And it's not the one you see in Mike Ferry. It's not the one Aaron Novello did. No. I mean, I took a little bit of bits and pieces, but I found it non-effective, at least for our clients here in New Jersey. So that being said, that like prospect lead follow-up appointments, negotiate 15, 20 minutes tops, maybe. If you have a lot of offers you're negotiating, maybe. But I'm saying like cumulative time, right? Speak to an agent there, they come back to you 5 o'clock, you know what I mean? So whatever. Okay. Then you have appointments. Appointments, what? No more than an hour. If you have one for the day, maybe, right? And then you have lead follow-up. Maybe lead follow-ups, maybe like 15, well, it could be 15 minutes on the low end. Could be up to an hour, depending upon, like Danny has a whole log. He's got a lot of follow-up to do. In fact, he shouldn't be prospecting right now. So exactly. If you put a pillar, put like PLAN on a piece of paper and put marks on that, and it just will toggle up and down depending upon where you're at. But know that if you're involved in any of these activities, you're making money. Just to give you some clarity on this. Okay? Yeah. Involved in any one of those. So as an example, what if you had a blowout month? You took 5, 6, 10 listings in 1 month, and they all got sold in a week. Guess what you're doing for like at least one full day, probably? Negotiating, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of it actually you could probably give to, if they're going to sell that quick, it's going to be highest and best. And sorry, Teddy, she's going to be inundated with all these offers she's got to sort through and call, all that other stuff. But that's what the job is, and that's what it is, right? So it's negotiating, but like you're going to be doing a lot more of that, but you're still making money. You see what I'm saying, guys? And so it's okay if you took the prospecting down a little bit for that day. Right. This is a daily thing. It's like, okay, and so this is what you should be reviewing before you start your day for the next day. Okay, what do I have? How many appointments do I have? How many offers do I have to negotiate? What does my lead follow-up look like? All right, I have nothing going on. I guess all day is prospecting. You're working too hard because you're thinking too much. Ooh, fire. You're working too hard because you're thinking too much. You guys are athletes. Look at yourself as an athlete. What do athletes do when they're in the game? What do athletes do when they're performing? You know about Kobe Bryant's story? All he talked about, he was thoughtless on the court. That's why he played so well. But imagine you're grabbing for a rebound, or you're a wide receiver and you're thinking about where the ball is coming, or even let's say, why do you think quarterbacks get hurt so much? The reason is because they're not thinking about getting hit so much, thinking about where's my targets and let me just go. They're not thinking. So if they get hit, they get fucked up. But what then rattles their brain to like get back, and so they have to stay in the pocket. I heard a good quote from Tom Brady. He's like, why is quarterbacking going into a running game when our job and our linemen are supposed to be there to protect us while we're in the pocket? Because right. All the success of getting touchdowns is when they're in the pocket, not when they're fucking running. The quarterback's goddamn running. I don't know if that resonated with anybody, but that to me resonated like a lot. Is that we're working way too hard about ourselves and what we're doing. You want it in your mind, you're thinking myself, I'm going to keep it casual. Just notice what you just said right there. Yeah. Do you think I'm casual with how I do my business? Do you guys believe that I'm able, or anyone who's successful in this business is able to produce an outsized return by being casual? This is a perfect segue because this goes to what Mike just eloquently just led me right into what I was going to talk about, which is how do we think about ourselves in the business? Like, how do we legitimately think about it? In other words, I really am coming down to realize, and I forget this stuff because I'm so far past that to another level that not that it's a better level, it's just like a different level, right? That I'm not conscious all the time when I hear questions from you guys, especially the newer agents, right? That I'm not like, oh, so there might be dream and belief issues. And I want to do a 2 millimeter shift in the perception. Basically, we all have lenses of how we look at things, right? And so I want to shift and clean up that lens so that you can see clearly through it to be like, wow, this is how I should be thinking about myself when I'm doing these real estate agent activities, okay? So Because anything you have, this is like the kind of goes into like the first point, is that anything we have a relationship with that is developed over time, it creates the perception of who you are as an agent. But if you don't give yourself enough time in the business, enough time with your calls, enough time, and that, going forward, you probably have a dream and belief issue. We all work hard here. And guys, if you're like, yeah, I'm good, Dean, with this, and that's fine. But I've been noticing this a lot. John and I worked a lot on his belief, honestly. He doesn't even know it, but we did. All the affirmations I told him to do last year, these different things, it just so happens that you have an identity about yourself and about who you are into this. And so this is what I'm going to say. The only way this will work is if we consistently over a period of time can make our calls, do the business where you can finally start compounding your efforts with a great database. Because basically I wrote so many things down, so you got to bear with me, right? If you're not doing the work right now, it's probably a dream and belief issue. If you're not doing the work, what's the work? It's all the activities. It's in your schedule. It's probably a dream or belief issue. The financial thing that Gabby had mentioned yesterday, that's a little bit separate. That's like a little thing that you have that's literally, because like right now we're thinking like, okay, my short-term mindset is saying, it's screaming at her saying, get a job, because I have to get a job, have to get a job. If you have to get a job, you have to get a job. But that's what the short-term mindset wants you to think. The long-term visionary mindset that you have is a different thing. And the only way to build a great business is that you haven't, none of us here that I see all these efforts. You think I work as hard as I did 7 years ago? No way. I grinded for many, many, many years. But after time, even Leo in our podcast said it, at some point your efforts should be compounding. And if they're not after a certain, like a number of years, then we have either dream or belief issue or a serious systems issue. But I also go back and default to dream and belief about who you are and how you believe and your identity of yourself. Because the reality is, you're not saying something, or you think you're coming across weird, or there's something kind of not there. Look for the person that's looking for you. What's so funny to me is I hear a lot of people, whether it be on phone words or in different pockets, right? And it's like, if they aren't open, if they're not open to this idea, they're not open to what we're talking about, they aren't looking to buy or sell. And if we're doing what I write down, if all we're doing is getting hung up on the fact about how we're looking like, how are we looking towards them? Like, what is their perception of us in this moment? Because I'm not sounding the right way. I don't have the right skills. I'm not, if we're so in there, then you have a dream or belief problem, most likely. You do. There's something in your approach. I don't care how maybe annoying it may come across, which I can chisel down. I will work with everyone on that, always, is to chisel down like, okay, the skill set, get you better with communication. How do we get to there? But at the core of it, if you're worrying about what people are thinking about you, or you're worried about how you think you're coming across, you probably have a dream or belief issue around this. That's something in the core basis of you. There's not a serious belief that what I'm doing matters, and what I'm doing is important, and what I'm doing is giving value to who I'm reaching out to. And so stop trying to talk to people into being open. That's where all of us, anyone that I see fail in this business, you are trying to find and convince people. And that's where we get this whole, you realize the whole saying of pushy salespeople is because it's the people that are pushing when they're not even open to an opportunity. If I call an expired and I've done my due diligence and I get through that sales wall and I do that politely, and then it comes to find out that I had multiple conversations like that today. Trash. It's over. Don't try to convince them otherwise. What are we doing? Look for the people that are looking for you. Your timing is more important than the close. So we all want to be great closers. We want to make sure we know how to close it down. Make sure we do it this way. I actually think it's different. I actually believe that your timing of when you're sending your message is more important than the actual close itself. So when we look at this and we say, okay, if you have a listing opportunity, they needed to find a place. But the timing of me, I'm not going to sit there and say, sign the paperwork right now. It doesn't make sense in the moment to do that. So my timing and my cadence is going to change. And I'm going to go a different direction and say, all right, after about a month, and I was confident with that. Because again, you have to use your presentation time is when they buy you or they don't buy you. Don't think about this with any other, there's no, this is the clarity I want to give you guys today. The presentation is when they check off, I'm going to work with this agent or not. So then if that's the case, then your timing of when you follow up should not matter. You're not following up with these people, multiple times after a presentation. That's why I was confident with Danielle and Ryan, who I didn't know before, after I set that meeting up, because she was looking for me. To my point number two, she was legitimately looking. If you look at hear the recording, however, I opened up the conversation and she said yes. She just said yes. So, okay, that doesn't happen all the time, but at the same time, I still developed enough rapport in that conversation to then get to the appointment, and then all of a sudden my timing and my cadence, and I feel like that's what I realized is like that's that third point right here, the timing versus the close, is that we think that this is what gives us the business, and it's not. It's not. It's how your cadence is with your prospects based on the experience and based on what you have and what you're going for. That's why a lot of your questions that you guys come to me with comes as a result of not knowing the timing yet. We want to think that we're credible, right? We all want to think that we're credible. If you're concerned with how prospects and clients may be thinking about you and how you come across, you definitely, going back to my other point, I kind of interchanged them actually, but it should be two separate ones. The second point was look for the person that is looking for you. And then this last point was actually the one that I kind of went into the other way, which is that you have a dream or belief problem. If you're really concerned with how you're coming across. Yes, there's different things you hear and you're like, oh, I sound like crap, but hold on. How do some agents in the marketplace that you think you hear them, you hear how they talk, and you're like, how in God's name do you close any deals? How is that possible? Maybe their belief in themselves and their approach, even though they're so cringy, it's so high that it's somehow people won't work with them and pay them money. What you're hearing, what you're attracted to me about is being polished and being like, I'm all, like, yes, I know what to say and how to say it. That was my ethos. Like I've always wanted to be world-class salesperson. Like, how do I get there, right? And it starts with that dream and belief. It starts with this belief in yourself. You have got to understand that. So don't worry so much at how you're coming across to people and what they're thinking after the call or whatever. If you seriously believe it genuinely, well, what price range are you looking into? Because if I'm in that conversation with that sphere that you very smartly, but you somehow you got in a meeting or whatever, but like we know there are core seller questions. There's core buyer questions now. There's all this different questions that we need to know to see what I can do to help them. I'm doing this with anybody. My cousins, I'm doing this on the beach, I'm doing this anywhere. So my point is that this is part one, but yeah, that's so far what I got on these points. But we have got to establish some sort of dream and belief in ourselves to ever get to this next level that you guys want to attain.